I'm Karen Stone, and this is Year by Year. In 1943, America was halfway through its engagement in World War II. Men were fighting overseas, and women were running the show at home. It was a year of uncertainty and deprivation, and Americans met the challenge with enthusiasm. While battles raged in far-off places like Tarawa, Bougainville, and Stalingrad, America's women found themselves in places just as exotic for them, munitions factories. Along with the WACs and First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, Rosie the Riveter created a new ideal of female strength. As the newsreels of 1943 show, the war effort was every American's priority. We'll see footage of Navajo Indians offering snacks to U.S. troops, Judy Garland and Fred Astaire selling war bonds, even First Lieutenant Clark Gable earning his wings. These stories and more on Year by Year, 1943.
At a United States Army school in flexible gunnery, sharpshooters learn to use aerial machine guns, training their fire upon small discs hurled by a machine into the air. From the gun turret of a model bomber, they shoot from every position. Trying to hit the tiny, moving targets is the best training possible. When they pass this test, they're real flying sharpshooters. Graduate of such a school is a man known to cinema fans the world over, Clark Gable. Refusing a higher rank, he volunteered as a private and worked his way up. Now he's awarded the silver wings of an aerial gunner, a first lieutenant in the Army Air Force. Clark Gable, movie star, playing his greatest role. Manning a .50 caliber gun, he will soon be in action against the enemy. United States bombers take off from bases in the Arctic to blast the remaining Japanese on Kiska Island in the Aleutians. Over the enemy base, tons of huge projectiles drift lazily to Earth, guided to their mark by the famous American bomb sights. When the big eggs land, they explode like clouds, and one more Jap base is wiped out. Somewhere in China, another American Air Force under General Chennault maps the raid on Japanese-held Hong Kong. Fighter planes escort the bombers as the squadron flies high over Asia. Hong Kong, and thereafter the Kowloon Naval Base. The Chinese cameraman who made these pictures knows it well. Hong Kong is his native city. Now he returns to help rid it of the Japs. To their base in China, safe and sound. American pilots get a warm welcome. They blasted the Japs from Hong Kong to Kiska. In the United States Capitol at Washington, the new American Congress, chosen and elected by the people of every state, assembles to hear President Roosevelt bring a message of hope and courage to free men everywhere.
The Axis powers knew that they must win the war in 1942, or eventually lose everything. I do not need to tell you that our enemies did not win the war in 1942. But as we face that continuing task, we may know that the state of this nation is good. The heart of this nation is sound. The spirit of this nation is strong. The faith of this nation is eternal.
Sentries are playing an important role in helping Coast Guardsmen patrol America's thousands of miles of shoreline. A full-dress review marks the departure of the newest regiment of K-9 recruits assigned to active duty. Mounted and afoot, the Coast Guard keeps close watch over all beaches on the Atlantic and the Pacific.
Work was hot, plenty hot. By the time we'd finished tossing our stuff, we'd put our own personal brand on part of the Jap Navy and Air Force, and we'd taken a few slugs doing it. So here we were in dry dock getting a patch job. There were workers all over the deck. What they weren't fixing, we were polishing up for our next session with the boys from Tokyo. While all this is going on, word is passed to the Hollywood Victory Committee that a damaged flat top is home for repair. So up from the film town comes a double load of names to give us a show on the spot. Danny Kaye, Dick Powell, Dale Evans, Yvonne DiCarlo, a flock of others. For most of them, this was their first time on a flat top, and they were like a small-town gang taking their first look at the big city. The commander shows them around, including a gander at our scoreboard that proved that we hadn't been out trolling for barracuda. Then below on the hangar deck, while the flight deck was still crawling with welders, riveters, and repairmen, we got a welcome home show that did more for us than a double dose of vitamins. Here's some samples of what went on.
I have a song that I used to do in a show called Let's Face It a couple of months ago, and it's called Melody in 4F. And in this particular song, it's the story of a select thief from the time he gets his questionnaire and his physical examination and is assigned to a class. Give me that picture. I will sing, hey, young pup, your number's up. Hop-de-doo-doo-doo-doo-lady. Get-ya-doo-doo-doo-beat-ba-sound, get-ya-doo-doo-doo-beat-ba-sound, give him going, get-ya-say, wheel-a-get-ya-game, the mailman, get-ya-doo-doo-doo-beat-ba-sound, give him going, get-ya-say, wheel-a-get-ya-game, how to the place, and old questionnaire, give him going, get-ya-say, wheel-a-get-ya-game, how to the place, and get-ya-doo-doo-doo-beat-ba-sound, give him going, get-ya-say, wheel-a-get-ya-game, how to the place, and get-ya-doo-doo-doo-beat-ba-sound, give him going, get-ya-say, wheel-a-get-ya-game, how to the place, and don't we go to the doctor, get-ya-doo-doo-doo-beat-ba-sound, feel a higher doc, how to the place, and get-ya-doo-doo-doo-beat-ba-sound, give him going, get-ya-say, we got a fine specimen. Oh no, you got you to be passé. We didn't go and get to say. We got the game flat, please. You got you to be passé and get the follow. Give it, get the say. We got the game high. Give him go and get the say. We got the game hold to play. Give him go and get the say. We got the game hung to the play. He got you them. He got you them. He got you them. He got you them. One day.
Shipshape again and back on duty, but wherever we go and whatever happens, that Victory Committee sure gave us something to talk about besides breakfast in bed. Yes, sir, something nice to remember.
Still to come on Year by Year, the stars come out for Uncle Sam. Wartime in Hollywood. Stay with us. Welcome back to Year by Year. In 1943, Americans were fighting in Europe and the South Pacific, but Hollywood's brightest stars did their part for Uncle Sam at home. Jimmy Cagney, Fred Astaire, and Lucille Ball were just a few of the actors who rallied around the flag, selling war bonds to the American public.
Motion picture stars arrive in Washington to aid in the nation's campaign to sell war bonds. Riding in Army cars, the celebrities parade through the streets of the Capitol. Stars known to cinema fans all over the world. James Cagney, Lucille Ball, Fred Astaire. From atop the Washington Monument, we look down into an arena as thousands gather to cheer their favorites. Harpo Marx, Greer Garson, a parade of the Army's famous Jeeps, and the slogan is, "Back the attack." Little Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland, all aiding the cause, as the people of America invest in government bonds to win the war. An Allied convoy nearing the coast of North Africa. Desperately, the Luftwaffe tries to stop fresh troops and equipment from reaching United Nations forces closing in on Rommel. But the convoy comes through, and more like them, bringing food, ammunition, supplies, troops from England and the United States in a never-ending stream. On the Tunisian front, British engineers render harmless landmines left to cover the German retreat. From the south, the British drive is on in force as Americans push through the central sector. The wreckage of a shattered army lies strewn across the desert. In Africa, the Nazis' days are numbered. The doors of America's great universities swing open to the Army. At Yale University, one of the biggest and oldest, 3,000 officer cadets come to complete their training for the Army Air Force. Today, America's halls of learning resound to the tread of marching feet. Young men are turning from the studies of the liberal arts to become students of war. Army teachers replace headmasters in cap and gown. Machine guns have no conscience, says the writing on the blackboard. Words these future lieutenants may well remember. The huge dining hall of Yale University now turned into a super mess hall for the Army. No less eager to do their bit, American colleges adopt the same physical training program the Army prescribes for its men. For more rigid exercise and bodybuilding, they practice on a snow-covered obstacle course. Purely recreational sport, while the country is at war. Their job is to gain strength and health, the duties they will be called on to perform. Indians show their true patriots when a troop train pauses here on its way through the far west. They bring baskets of home-cooked food to the men in uniform. They're proud of their honor roll. 700 Indian boys from one community are serving with America's armed forces. In their workshops, Navajo women, famous for their handicraft, and games for Red Cross packages. From this home, a Navajo chief has sent 3 sons to the Army. American Indians, loyal to their country. Pacific Coast, a new steel mill is completed at the Kaiser shipyard. Mr. Kaiser is the man who builds 10,000-ton Liberty ships in 4 days. The giant blast furnace begins to operate for the first time. No longer will they have to truck materials all the way from eastern steel mills. Now they'll make steel plates for steel ships right on the spot. A flying fortress arrives in New Guinea, bringing General Douglas MacArthur. The United Nations leader in the South Pacific is welcomed by the commanding officer of an American air base. Riding over roads that were literally hacked from the jungle, General MacArthur drives to the front. Inland, he sees carriers protected by Australian troops, keeping open supply lines, bringing food, oil, and ammunition. Fighters driving against positions on New Guinea. At an advanced air base, the general meets fighters who are constantly harassing enemy shipping. Even now, a giant C-4 is taking aboard a load of bombs. As word reaches the base, a Japanese cargo ship is steaming off the coast. The crew is anxious to be off. Target sighted. Machine gunners ready. The big bomber roars down and rakes the ship from stem to stern. The second time over, bombs are on their mark, and the freighter is crippled by the explosion. Flashes the message, mission accomplished. In America, patriotic citizens are giving their blood to save the lives of their soldiers and sailors. 500,000 pints have been donated. Red Cross Blood Bank is accepting voluntary contributions at the rate of 2 years. Mate, whose own life was saved by 8 transfusions, insisted on repaying for a part of the life he borrowed. Here is real patriotism, and his blood for his...
Still to come on Year by Year, the Nazi defeat at Stalingrad, and the front page of 1943. The front page news in 1943, the battle at Guadalcanal ends, the Nazi surrender of the Africa Corps. President Roosevelt meets with Prime Minister Churchill in Casablanca.
The heroic defense of Stalingrad. The Soviet army turning the Nazi 6-month assault into the most ghastly military disaster in German history. Held high, the beaten Nazis pour from house after house in abject surrender. Hitler's generals give up too, 24, including a field marshal. Here is Lieutenant General von Daniel, commander of the veteran 376th Division. Catch of all, Field Marshal Frederick von Paulus, Commander-in-Chief of all Axis Army, Stalingrad. Taken to headquarters of General Shumilov for questioning, von Paulus has much to say for. He is the man who ordered the extermination of every citizen in Stalingrad. Calmly, quietly, General Shumilov reviews von Paulus' record. This von Paulus, who 2 months before threatened the families of his soldiers with death if one man should surrender. First, he was captured only because he was gravely wounded. Actually, a young Red Army lieutenant found him in the basement of a department store and brought him in without a struggle. These also gave up. Cold, starved, emaciated, defeated. Remnants of 22 beaten Nazi divisions. Now they plod toward a Russian president. Proudly, the red flag flies again over the heroic city of Stalin, as endless lines of Nazi prisoners write the final chapter in the Battle of Stalingrad. Here, the might of the German Sixth Army met the courage of a people fighting for life and liberty. American motorcycle dispatch riders train on courses just as difficult as they will find soon in action in Africa, in Alaska, in the South Pacific, or on the continent of Europe. For following these tests, they're off to battlefronts around the world.
It was a bright sunny day, with the air fresh and clean. Not a rumor was stirring, except in the latrine.
Hiya, Snafu. What's new?
Oh, nothing much. Nice day.
Nice day for a bombing.
Yeah, nice bombing weather. Bombing weather. Bombing weather.
Sounds harmless enough. Innocent stuff. But let's take a look in and see what's cooking.
Bombing weather. Bombing weather. Bombing weather. Bombing weather. Bombing weather.
Just between you and me, pal, I knew you were in for a...
The hot blowing. A rumor is growing.
They're gonna bomb us. They're gonna bomb us. Hear about the bombing. Hear about the bombing. They bombed us. Did you hear about the terrible bombing last night? Well, I heard it on TV.
Balloon juice. It's phony, but it makes nice baloney. That's right. Exaggerate it. Stretch it. Multiply it. Now shoot off your... And baloney is flying all over the place.
Worst air raid of the war. Yeah. They blasted hell. Coney Island was wiped out. What's the matter with our plane? That's like kites. 10 parachute troops landed right on the White House lawn. The coast is loaded with invasion barges. Just a minute, Bud. Did you know that we had nothing to fight with? That our shells are all duds? The Japs are in California! Wait until you see their new secret weapons. This may surprise you, but they're attacking this very camp. The Russians have surrendered. The British are quitting.
packing boxes of food and medicines for Allied prisoners of war. Boxes containing vitamins, canned meat, coffee, cigarettes, matches, soap. This four-masted Portuguese bark, manned by a neutral crew, is one of the ships especially chartered for the voyage. Its safe passage guaranteed by all belligerent nations. A cargo of mercy for Allied soldiers and civilians wherever they are. Canada, scene of the 6th historic meeting between President Roosevelt and Prime Minister Churchill. With them, the Dominion Premier and highest-ranking British and American staff officers. Admiral King and General Marshall, States Army Chief of Staff. The United Nations war leaders have said their decisions would become known on the battlefields in future action against the Axis. Significant is the arrival of China's Foreign Secretary, Dr. T.V. Sun, who comes to the conference table representing Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek. Premier King welcomes the Chinese boy to Canada. Even as Britain's Prime Minister and President Roosevelt warn the Axis to surrender now, the High Command announces new offensives on all fronts. Lord Louis Mountbatten at left, Supreme Allied Commander in Southeast Asia. Britain's Air Marshal Sir Charles Portal and American Air Chief General Henry Arnold at left declare that new day and night air assaults on Berlin are already in progress. Plans for bringing effective aid to China. Plans for decisive blows that will end the war in the East.
Coming up year by year, the war effort at home. Year by year returns to 1943. With America's men fighting overseas, the nation's women took over the war effort at home. From Rosie the Riveter to Eleanor Roosevelt, these heroines represented the leadership and determination that helped win the war. Now join us as Year by Year looks at some of their stories.
This is Franklin D. Roosevelt in the field uniform of the American Red Cross, visits United States-based hospitals in the Pacific. Popular wherever she goes, the President's wife is the subject of many a camera snapshot. A tireless traveler, Mrs. Rose's presence in Australia and New Zealand serves as a tonic and an inspiration to wounded American soldiers convalescing thousands of miles from home. Women workers of Canada hold down the jobs of their men who have been called to war. Here in the world's largest munitions plant, 18,000 French-Canadian women are breaking records in the manufacture of ammunition. Every day, they turn out bullets by the millions. Bullets for rifles, automatics, and machine guns. Operates its own kitchen, employs experienced housewives to help prepare nourishing food. In the lunchroom, 1,500 girls are fed in 15 minutes. Back to work, where artillery shells up to 18-pounders are checked before shipment. And every day they test the quality of their work with blank fire on the proving ground.
Celebrate birthdays. These young ladies are proud on May 14, 1943, the first anniversary of the founding of the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps. It hasn't been an easy year for a soldier. Despite efficient accomplishment of her duties, sideline quarterbacks have taken pot shots at her from every angle. At Army posts and camps throughout the United States, she's taken up not only the clerical or senatorial sort of duties she might have had in civilian life, but also she has new kinds of jobs requiring newly acquired skills. At dispatcher for the Air Corps, a motor pool mechanic, a radio operator, efficiently the new and complicated GI equipment. She's freeing fighting men for the job of getting the war in a hurry. Now that the whack and roll has jumped from 25 to 150,000 and are appearing all over in increasing numbers, a lot of guys have an honest curiosity. Forget the idle chatter. On the level, what's whack outfit? Every whack is a volunteer. She enlists because she wants to. She's going in of her own free will to help win the war quickly. She's between 21 and 45 and must be an American citizen. First off, she gets a mental alertness test, and then an interview with an officer who determines her suitability for the Corps. Then, if she passes her physical, she's sworn in and sent to one of the 5 basic training centers where she undergoes 4 weeks of tough basic training. The complete GI routine from typhoid and tetanus shots through military courtesy right down to KP. All of it except for the manual of arms. Both physically and mentally, the training is strict and comprehensive. And whether it's chemical warfare drill or Red Cross life-saving practice, you've got a lot to learn and do in 1 month. Yet, it's their war, too. And as the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps begins its second year of even greater and more expanded activity, America has reason to salute its women soldiers. All part of the same army, all working to win the same war, and all strictly GI.
America launches a wide campaign to fund for the Red Cross. Mrs. Roosevelt and Crown Princess Martha of Norway are among the notables appearing at the New York Madison Square Garden to aid the cause. The huge throng is treated to patriotic entertainment by the world-famous music hall Rockette. American-made tanks found overseas. Embarkation port for armored juggernauts, arriving from factories by the trainload. Here, inspectors check and prepare the tanks for the climate in which they'll... With adhesive tape, every opening is sealed against the moisture of an ocean crossing. Expert women drivers give the tanks a final test before running them onto long flat cars which transport them to ships waiting in the harbor. Tanks bound for fronts wherever United Nations forces are fighting. In American shipyards, every day new keels are being laid to swell the tide of United Nations shipping. Workers have long since voluntarily changed from peacetime jobs to war jobs. Plants operate in 3 shifts, hum at top speed into the night, around the clock. American workers are building the ships, and the ships are delivering the goods.
Year by Year returns to 1943.
Of Nazi Europe through Italy by the American Fifth Army. Embarking for Salerno, just below Naples, the great amphibious force of Lieutenant General Mark Clark strikes for the north, even as Montgomery's 8th Army rolls virtually unopposed through the south. At sunset, the huge convoy gets underway. Ships extending over 1,000 square miles of the Tyrrhenian Sea. General Clark, 5th Army commander, and Vice Admiral Henry Hewitt commanding the fleet. Salerno, then Naples is their objective. Already the British ace occupies the boot of Italy. As Montgomery plunges northward to join the Americans, Clark's forces strike for Salerno. Aboard ship, Ranger battalions study relief maps of the Italian coast. Every mountain and every valley is memorized as they steam for Salerno. During the night, the Fifth Army swarms ashore. In the faint light of dawn, under attack from German batteries emplaced in the hills, they dig in, establish their beachhead, and fight back. Sunrise, ships and supplies are still pouring in. Here, the biggest battle of the Mediterranean campaign develops around this initial thrust into metropolitan Italy. Pushed back time and again by superior Nazi forces, the Fighting Fifth is reinforced on schedule. Units are brought up, and the Americans take the offensive. General Clark directs the attack from the beach itself. Meanwhile, the Italian fleet steams for Allied ports. General Eisenhower and Admiral Cunningham see the terms of surrender carried out to the letter. At an East African port, wives and children of Italians captured in Ethiopia are sent home by the British. Italian ships, which brought out the colonists who found Mussolini's colonial empire, now take them back under the protection of the International Red Cross. For many of the youngsters, it will be their first view of the mother country. The United Nations have no war with women and children. To American universities is Madame Chung Kai-shek. 26 years ago, at Mei-Ling Sung, she was graduated from this same Wellesley campus with highest honors. Today, as the wife of China's great leader, she returns to be undergraduates, American girls just like those with whom she attended school. Wellesley is proud and honored to welcome home its most distinguished graduates. President's official home, American headquarters for leaders of the United Nations. Here Mr. Roosevelt lived, working long hours into the night. But when 7 o'clock comes, here is one chap who usually gets his supper direct from the hand of the president. His name is Fala, a 3-year-old Scotty, and the president's only pet. Fala is quite an accomplished dog, and equally fond of his master. A rare and interesting glimpse into the human qualities of the man who is President of the United States. Bombers of the 8th United States Air Force, taking off from Airco, continue their round-the-clock devastation of war plants in Nazi Germany. In broad daylight, mighty squadrons roar across the North Sea. Over Hamburg, Germany's principal seaport, and #1 war center, tons of bombs rain from the sky. Aerial photographs show the results. 7 square miles of Hamburg's war industries, military installations, flattened and in ruins. Water mains, gas and electric plants. Hamburg, a center, a base for submarines, is virtually wiped off the map. ready for launching the new U.S. aircraft carrier Wasp. Among those invited to the ceremony are sons of naval officers who went down with the old Wasp off Model K. And the sponsor almost misses the boat. Now it's official. And the seventh warship in the history of the United States to bear the name Wasp slides down the waves to join the fleet. America's newest flat top will soon be in action against the American Scout car, known among United Nations armies as the is tested by Australians over the toughest proving ground. The little has 4 speed forward and sometimes has 4 wheels in the air, all at once. Here's where cameraman and driver have a narrow escape. Nobody hurt, but too close for comfort.
Back home, the kids still start planning for Christmas sometime around Thanksgiving. Maybe the delivery truck has something for them. Maybe not. War has made a difference in Christmas to the kids.
Don't worry, John. It's nothing to you. It's my thing. No, John. This is going to be a small Christmas. I looked through the closets last night and there were only 2 packages. Here I am at a time like this. 4 brothers like Captain Knight.
War has made a difference in Christmas to a lot of fighting men. Men kept away from their families by the urgent business of war.
Morning condition report, Captain. Yes, sir.
But there was time enough and thoughtfulness enough for them to write a letter. Manager, Children's Department, R.H. Macy and Company, New York City, New York. Dear sir, enclosed is a check for $2,404.25, for which we ask you to give us the following service. 1, select a Christmas gift or gifts valued at approximately $3 for each of the 729 children listed in enclosures A and B. We are so far removed from home in both time and distance that we have little idea of what kind of gifts may be available this year. We shall therefore not limit you in choice. 2, wrap and mail your selections to the home address of the listed children. We are sending our order early in the hope that you will be able to get your selections in the mail before the Christmas rush starts. May we suggest that each package be marked, "Do not open before Christmas." 3, please enclose with each package a gift card reading as follows. For sons and daughters, Merry Christmas from your dad and the shipmates in the USS North Carolina. Please acknowledge this at your earliest convenience. By that, we do not mean that you tell us what you selected for each child. The children will tell us that in due time and in their own inimitable manner. You will be adding greatly to the happiness of our children and to our own Christmas joy out here in one of the war zones. Very truly yours, E.P. Robbins, Chaplain, U.S. Navy. A combat zone is a long way from home on any day in the year, but it's twice as far away from home on Christmas. Men with photographs in their wallets. Sometimes it's children they've never seen. Photographs of their kid brothers and sisters. Photographs of the people back home they've never forgotten. There wasn't time for these men to rackages or fill stockings, but there was time for them to see that a kid brother in Oregon got a baseball bat, that a daughter in Massachusetts got a doll. These are the men who wrote the letter, and this is their ship, the USS North Carolina.
In 1943, Americans were actually involved in 2 wars. The one fought with against Germany and Japan, and the one fought back home against privation and uncertainty. On February 7th, shoe rationing began in the United States. In the months to come, meat, cheese, and canned goods would also be rationed. There were no new cars in 1943, and the work week for essential employees was expanded to 48 hours. The war effort at home required many sacrifices, and Americans did not disappoint. This has been Year by Year. I'm Karen Stone for the History Channel. Thanks for watching.
This is a History Channel news fact.
Timeline 52. Constantinople Emperor Justinian has worms on the brain. Silkworms, that is. He smuggles them out of China and plans